Show. It's your host, Milos speaking. Welcome to another exciting week in the insane and nonsensical world of Serbian football. Thank you for joining us again. And like every week, I'm joined by a couple of my good friends to discuss everything that is new in the world of Serbian football. Of course, we have our man Luka joining us this week from the beaches of Tulum, Mexico. Luka, how is Tulum? And also, how many times have you been offered drugs on the beach this week?
Oh, man. Too many to count, number one. And Tulum is great, man. Just sweating my ass off and fighting out the mosquitoes, dude. And fighting out the drug dealers, of course.
Hey, we're just trying to make an honest living, you know. You can't hate on them too
yeah,
much.
I can't. You're right.
And returning to the show, our man from down on the valley, Velimir, how's life in Adelaide?
Like a rash on the inside of your thigh that never seems to go away, I'm back. Unbelievable, fellas. It's really good to be back. Good to hear your voices, and like the intelligence level really goes down when I rejoin the pod. So last week's was fantastic, and it's a credit to you.
No, the show's not the same without you, of course. And of course, we have Alexa from the beautiful city of Belgrade joining us as well. Alex, I know that you're getting ready to take your second shot of the Chinese vaccine. How are you feeling?
Well, the cats and dogs are looking particularly tasty as of late. I've kind of been looking at them. It's kind of the water's coming down my mouth a little bit. But no, I'm starting to understand our president as well. I'm helping him establish trade communications with China. So everything's good. As far as Veli is concerned, we've all kind of impromptu gotten together. I wasn't planning on doing it on a Tuesday, but Veli was available, so we decided to acquiesce. And maybe the intelligence goes down, but the entertainment certainly goes up. And one last thing, look, hey, I mean, stop taking shots at drug dealers that work in the inner cities, man. I mean, they're doing just fine over here. You know, it's not just the beaches that go out and offer that sort of fine service. You know, you got to put some respect on the guys that are doing the urban stuff. So shout out to
I agree,
all
man.
of them.
You know, that down here they told me that tequila makes the coronavirus go away, so I've just been taking shots, dude.
Yeah, but you guys get all the top quality stuff. We get the arse end of what's left over down here, and they still sell it for big money.
Well, if you're smart, you'll just stay away from tequila in general, dude. So don't worry about it.
They sell it to the kangaroos down there. I'm pretty sure what's left over they give to the kangaroos, and then they run the place.
And then they join Parliament.
Exactly. There you go.
All right, let's talk about Veli, I know you weren't here last week, and I know you probably want to talk about the news of our official, of course, but I still it will be the new manager. Apparently, you know, the squad's being announced on Friday, so somebody's got to do it, and I think it's going to be him. But, Veli, what are your thoughts on this hire? I know you met the man before, you talked to him, I think he was also your childhood hero, right? So what are your thoughts
Absolutely.
on this?
So, guys, before everything, you know, you guys covered it really, really well last podcast, and it was a credit to you. There was one thing in there, it was nothing what you guys said, but there was one detail in your discussion last week that absolutely got my ears pricked up, and I just thought, you know, this is the concern that we should have. So it was down to that quote where it said that Dragan Stojkovic put a clause in his contract that he stays, you know, for the 2 cycles. If you guys remember that at all, you know what I mean?
I mentioned it multiple times in the.
So he was putting a clause for the longevity of his contract. Now, what got my thought process thinking is, it shouldn't be up to the incumbent manager to put that in their clause. It should be up to the FSS or the Football Association in Serbia to make sure that is in his clause. If you want to have a plan for the future, like it was the wrong person or group putting that clause in. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be up to the manager. It should be up to the Football Association to say, okay, this is what the plan that we sort out. This is the plan that we want to put in place. Let's go find the appropriate person to execute that plan. And that was the only part that I found troubling, that I found concerning. But hey, it's the FSS, and you know we come to expect from that. So, listen, if everything in the media is true, of which you know we say that tongue in cheek, I think it's an appointment that everybody is looking forward to. But at the end of the day, it goes like this. Pep Guardiola needs the support of his club. Zinedine Zidane needs the support of his club. Jose Mourinho needs the support of his club. If you have equivalent positions, they need support of their FA. You can't just throw a man, whether it be Dragan Stojkovic or anybody else, into the fire and say, here, fend for yourself. So we've appointed him. They need to work together. They need to be up to date with the modern trends of football, the modern trends of European football, so to make sure that we can get to that end point or the point closest to as effectively and as coherently as we possibly can. But apart from that, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. The thing is that, I'd love for these qualifiers to get started so it can just ease the pain of the European Championships in the middle of this year in Akabogda, for all humanity, not just for us. Fans are being able to go back to the stadium, so we'll just ease the pain a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of news this week as well regarding his assistants. So it looks like Sasha Ilic will be one of his assistants, which is obviously a legend and a well-respected guy, so you can't really go wrong with that hire. I think Goran Djordjevic as well, former teammate, former coach of the under-21s, will be one of his assistants. And
isn't he bringing back a Japanese colleague as the conditioning trainer as well?
I think coach? So the conditioning analytics is what his longtime Japanese assistant provides for us. So, seems like he has an idea of what he wants. Seems like he's bringing in some good people, and hopefully we'll see something positive. There's also news that he's cutting certain experienced players or more experienced players, and he won't be including them in the future, like Kolarov, of course, as we all probably guessed, Stefan Mitrovic, Milivojevic, Nikola Maksimovic, and Adam Ljajic. It is what it is. Of course, there has to be a bit of a rebuild, and we need some new blood in the side and a new energy and a new atmosphere and environment in general. But our defense is pretty thin, so I don't know if getting rid of a couple of defenders that play for decent clubs is a good idea, although Maksimovic has, of course, been awful for the most part. And Stefan Mitrovic, he gets a lot of criticism, but I think he's actually been one of our more consistent and better defenders recently. So I don't really know who's going to replace him in the center there. Not many options out there. Luca, what are your thoughts on the never-ending speculation and the news that we're still waiting to have official, hopefully this week?
Yeah, man, I can't believe that it's not official, given that we're supposed to announce the squad here in a couple of days, right? So yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of that, but it just seems like business as usual for the FSS. I'm not sure what the hang-up is though. In regards to the new players, I think it is time to turn over a new leaf, especially if a Pixie is going to be here for 2 qualifying cycles. Let's get the group that he wants there at the beginning, so they have time to gel through this qualifying cycle, and then they'll be ready for the next one, hopefully with all the experience they're going to get. As far as our defense, man, I couldn't agree with you more. Definitely looking a little thin. One guy I wouldn't mind trying to bring back, and you guys may not agree with this, or not bring back, but just to put in the team, is Gajic from Zvezda, just because we don't have that many options. So I feel like he could be a semi-decent one to try out there. But overall, I guess other than the official announcement, which I'm still waiting for, because God forbid something happens and then all of a sudden Pixie's not the new manager. You know what I mean? And that would freaking suck, and that would be a really a new low for the FSS. But overall, I am ready for to turn over a new page with the national team, and seems like Pixie is the right man for the job at this moment, at least.
Yeah, who knows what's going on with FSS right now, with Kokiza getting arrested on suspicion of money laundering and other things, as well as possibly being involved in the plot to assassinate the president. So who knows what's happening?
As you do, because that's part of your like
job description,
apprenticeship. Part of your apprenticeship, coming to the water, and all that type of stuff. So of course, like I was just waiting for the time that he'd been accused of something.
So
yeah, exactly. And we all know how this works in Serbia, right? There's one person who controls everything, so I'm sure he's not arrested or detained or questioned for 4 hours without the approval of the almighty Mr. President. So who knows what's going on there? Maybe Kokisa was getting a little too cocky, a little too power hungry, and he might have been off a bit more he can chew, and now he's out of favor with his old buddy, the president. Really, we have no idea. There are reports and rumors that he's going to be out of a job fairly quickly, but we'll see what happens there. Would it surprise me? No. Would it surprise me if he stayed? No, as well. So who really knows? Alexa, what are your thoughts on the waiting game?
I got to give a shout out to the fine people at Twitter who did the investigative journalism part, which is a dying breed, unfortunately, in many places. And the fact that they went out and found out the story how our dear country president and the FSS president met up with Kokisa, who was pulling his donkey, and he was leading his donkey as an attraction, and got his son to take a picture with the donkey. And when he wanted to pay up for the picture, Kokisa said, "No, I respect your politics, and I think you're doing a great job." And so that's how they met up. I feel like we're the proverbial donkey that he's taking around. It's like they're pulling our nose for the last 20 years and we're just kind of sitting there on the side. But shout out to the people on Twitter who found that story. That made my week. And also the fact he denied a lie detector test. I still can't get over that. I mean, that's more than Monty Python shit. And I wish I could create some type of funny rebuttal or some type of comment, but it's just funny, and you just have to laugh because there's really nothing else to do if we're trying to look at the things objectively. I mean, the fact that the story went all the way to ESPN and made the front page of ESPN, I think, shows how serious this is. And the fact that the article actually did due diligence, the fact that they didn't just go at the association, they actually went at Vučić himself and a lot of the other shitty stuff happening behind the scenes. Obviously, we've seen what's happened in the raid at the Partizan Stadium and also at the Zvezda Stadium. You know, the media is kind of selectively choosing what to enforce and what not to enforce. So it's been complete chaos. I think that this is pretty much, as far as that situation is concerned, our dear leaders trying to save Zelensky and everyone else is pretty much being left out to dry, which I'm not sorry about at all. I mean, they sold their character and they sold their integrity out for a bit of money and whatever it was, and that's the only thing that they had coming to them, and it's long deserved. Now, who comes in as the replacement? Nemanja Vidic has been speculated. A lot of other people have been speculated. I brought up the point that they're going to promote Pantelic to be the FSS president, and Ana Brnabić is going to show up instead of him, and nobody's going to tell the difference. She's going to show up for press conferences and run the thing. But in regards to that, I mean, we have to see what happens. I mean, we've always had chaos at that stage, and even when Tomislav Karadzic was there, and we never had that kind of stuff happen, but he was always taking shots at, he's always fighting with somebody, whether it was the manager or one of the players or the fans or whatever. And even when Pixie was there as president, or Zvezdan Terzic was president, it was also very turbulent. So until somebody who's actually qualified comes in, I mean, it's always going to be chaotic because they're just, supporting that. And in regards to the player cuts, which I'm more focused on, and also a couple other points regarding Pixie, I'm going to go by the player cuts one by one because there's not many, but I think they're significant. The Kolarov one we all, I guess, expected. I think that he's one of the only left-footed defenders that we have, and I'm not glad to see him go, but at the same time, I think it's sad the way that it's going to end, with the whole situation about him playing with Scotland or not playing versus Scotland. I am kind of sad it's going to end that way, but also he's been at the center of a lot of debatable stuff, the way he got the captaincy and some of his performances have been, subpar, and I do think we need somewhat of a change there. In regards to Nikola Maksimovic, I don't want to see him play ever again. I mean, every game he's played, he's been the worst player on the pitch, and I mean, the game against Morocco, the game against Portugal, et cetera, he's been awful, and I think how that guy's made a career out of himself.
He made too many mistakes at crucial times.
Exactly, and he made mistakes that weren't like bad positioning or tiny mistakes.
Right.
He made mistakes you wouldn't see it like under 10 matches. So no, he I don't care what status he has at Napoli. He's not getting any pass from me because some guys can play well for the national team and bad for their clubs and vice versa. He's certainly in that other category. Losing Stefan Mitrovic, I disagree with that. I think one of the formulas that has worked for us historically is that in our defense we've always had to have one no-nonsense defender to be the enforcer and to be somebody who could really do the nasty work when necessary. If you remember when Ilija Petkovic was manager, Goran Gavričić took that role and played it very well. When Adem Antić was manager, Ivica Dragutinović did that role even though he was a fullback, but because of his injuries, because he was in his later years, he played that role and did well. And Jago Švoković, for example, was one of the real, I would say, I can't say X factors, but one of the more underrated performers in the Russia qualifying cycle, because he played some games very well. I remember the Georgia game when we were losing at halftime, and he came on, and our defense looked so much better with him in the middle, and we ended up actually turning that game around and winning 3-1. So Stefan Mitrovic is exactly that. He's a no-nonsense defender who, on his day, can play really well. The Norway game, he was fantastic against Erling Haaland and completely cut him off, even though he was physically weaker in terms of pace, certainly, and even strength. But his experience and his trickery really helped us. And even in the Albania game, which he's remembered for all the wrong reasons, he played very well in that game as well. And you look at our center back situation, the only two defenders that are in any kind of good form or any ability to start right now are Milenkovic and Milanovic. Milanovic, because he is the only defender who's actually acquiesced to playing three at the back. That's his best position, and that's where he would be perfect. It's exactly what we need. Now, we'll talk later about what Pixie does with his formation. I don't have a clue what he's going to do in terms of who he picks and how he plays, because I've seen like 2 or 3 games of him, and that's really the biggest question mark is, like, how are we going to play? Because we don't know how many of us have really watched, Nagoya or Guangzhou or, wherever he's been at. So that's the worry. And our other center backs, Schalke have looked disastrous this season, and I'm not saying Martin Nasic is at fault for that, but they have looked really bad there. Uroš Spajić has been kind of on and off, whether he's at Feyenoord or Krasnodar or wherever he was.
He's not having a lot of game time at the moment. Uroš Spajić is not having a lot of game time at the moment.
He lost a spot in the Dutch league, so that's not a good sign ever.
And in regards to Veljković, he's, Werder Bremen's been playing okay, but they've just kind of been a middle of the pack kind of a team. He's still a good option. I'm not going to discredit him for that, but, playing left is not one of his strengths because he's been a notoriously right-sided defender. And Strahinja Pavlović has been getting minutes, but clearly has not panned out the way we thought he would. And he's also had some iffy performances on the national team. So most men realize that when you don't have the quality in your defense, you need quantity. You need to just stack people behind the ball. Because it is our weakest defense. If we go into the qualifiers with 4 at the back, I dread to think what that's going to look like. Even though we have 2 very good goalkeepers, I dread to see how that's going to look. And also on the Gajic point, I would agree. I think he's actually been playing better. I think that's the only position in the team, apart from center back, that's the only position in the team that we really don't have coverage for. Darko Lazovic has been tremendous, and he's great at the wingback role, but he's not a right back, he's a right winger. And if Pixie is, they're going to change formations, and we'll talk about all the tactical nuances he may do. Our right back situation is dire at the moment, and the only one who's been in any kind of form and who has been playing fairly well is Gajic, and I think at that position we need backup. We have guys who can fill that role if we were to go with the wing-back position, because Gacinovic and Radonjic can play that, but neither have played that in a long time, and neither have shown the willingness to play that. Gajic would show the willingness to play that, and he would be some type of an alternative to Lazovic. And on the left side, we're stacked. Kostic has been playing out of his mind and has been the best Serbian player the last 3 months. And Mladenovic has been playing terrific as well, and even Mikhailo Ristic has been playing with Montpellier. So we're very well covered in every position, and I think that we need all the help we can get right now, because I think that this is going to be a good opportunity for Pixie to really pick out a core group that he can stick with. It's not going to be too big, but also where he can have adequate backups at each position. And I can get into the nuances of all the other things, but like Veli said, he covered a lot of points, and we covered a lot of it in the last podcast, so I feel it's been covered sufficiently.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what the squad will be. I think it'll give us a good insight into what he has planned for the start of the qualifiers and for in general going forward. Defense very thin, especially in the center, as you mentioned. Milenkovic is basically the only one that's playing well right now. Milanovic playing well for Zvezda, playing all right in Europe, but I don't know if he will be able to lead the line centrally. I think
just really quickly, another thing that at this moment our defense is so critical. Do you know who the best option would be? And one of the 3 best options defensively, statistically, in terms of his form, it would be Nemanja Rnić, who's the starting center back for Wolfsberger, Wolfsberger got out of the group in the Europa League, and that's the best result that any club has had that's had a Serbian defender there. And he's a legitimate option, really, at 35 years old.
Absolutely.
If we were to go by you go by his success rate, and if we were to go by how well his club's playing and how he's looked, it's gotten so bad that he might actually be worthy of a call-up. Like Novica Miličković is 35 years old, and he's getting like call-ups. Of course, the circumstances are different, but yeah, it's really critical. I mean, I've heard that the idea of putting Gode to play center back is also very prominent because he's done that for Sevilla, but after the Scotland game, which wasn't so much Gode's fault, but still after the Scotland game, I think the public is going to have a very bad perception of that. And I think we saw with Gode, if we keep him in the middle, that's where his best performances are at, and he's been playing great for Sevilla. So I wouldn't want him to go back, but the situation's so bad. At least at this particular moment, I feel like he almost might have to. But again, we might not even play with 3 at the back. We might go with a 4, but that opens up a whole new can of worms because we've talked about it before. I think the 3-4-3 or the 3-4-2-1 is the best option for us because we don't have right backs. We need wing backs to cover that. Playing with 4 at the back is murderous against the likes of Portugal and even Ireland and Luxembourg, who can play a bit. And I wouldn't go with that, but we'll see what happens. I have no clue what to expect from Pixie in terms of his team selection, in terms of the squad. What he's going to do with Tadic and Milinković-Savić, I think, is crucial because they offer 2 different ways of how you're going to play. And with striker situation, Mitrovic has been out of form and has been out of sorts for pretty much all season. Jovic has finally caught his form, and Dusan Vlahovic has been one of the best players in Serie A for the last month or so. And are you going to overlook Mitrovic's legacy to play the informed player? There's a lot of those questions that are going to need answering, and I hope that the press conference that he has, which hopefully we'll have soon because time is ticking by, we are 3 weeks away from the Ireland match, if my math is correct. That's not a lot of time, so we better get stuff going.
And so this is where I'd love to pick up on that point and say, okay, we're at a pretty low ebb. Let's not make bones about this. We are at a pretty low ebb in terms of our national team. So I seriously believe that we don't have the luxury of putting in an inexperienced or, trying too many things right now. I seriously believe our games against the Republic of Ireland and Portugal are a mini World Cup. Do you know what I mean? Like, because if you think about it, if we get 4 or 6 points out of those 2 games, which is always a possibility, but whether it's a probability, that's 2 different things. The enthusiasm there, the optimism there is and like generally good feeling about the place. But if those 2 games pull out 2 points, 1 point, no points, Jesus Christ, we're in real trouble. Do you know what I mean? Already, like, the pressure is on us immensely. And although, I agree with every single one of the comments, especially in the fact is that I reckon out of those cuts, Mitrovic could have stayed because the guy does a lot of simple things very well. He's not fashionable. He's not going to win any footballing, modelling contracts or anything like that. He is a stark defender who wins the ball, plays the first available guy. That's all he does. And I love it, right? So, but I seriously believe our first 2 games is like a mini World Cup for us already. I think we're in that much of a important phase of our footballing history, not in a life cycle, but in history, that we need to get the best we possibly can out of those first 2 games straight away, although we need a plan. And I know that I almost sound like I'm contradicting myself, which is not my intention, but the fact is that we really need to get something out of these first 2 games more than anything that we've ever done previously.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough, especially with, Pixie, this being his first time managing outside of Asia, right? And also all the new faces or old faces coming back that we're expecting to see in the team. So I'm with you though, Valley. I think especially the game against Ireland, that first game, I think you need the 3 points, man. I think you need the 3 points badly if you want to have any sort of success in this qualifying cycle, and especially if you're shooting for the top 2 spots. And anything less than that is going to be very much an uphill climb.
Couple of points in order. Don't forget the Azerbaijan game because, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that game was also going to be kind of problematic because we're having a 2,000-mile flight or whatever it is, or, however we're going there, and nobody likes to play there. So I would also count that. The Ireland, the luxury is the fact that all these opponents we've played against in recent times, we played against Portugal in the group just recently, and against Ireland we played against them 4 years ago, and They haven't really changed much. I mean, they're pretty dreadful in attack. So the fortunate thing is because of the defense, we're going up against an Irish team that really is struggling, offensively. If they had Jack Grealish and Declan Rice, it would be a different thing. But their best options still like Robbie Brady and James McLean and guys like that. So the good thing for Pixie is that he can really pick a defense that can work again and it can be a no-nonsense type of defense because we know Ireland's going to play strong and they're going to play tough. And the thing with Ireland is they don't even have the individual quality that Scotland have. Because you look at Scotland, for example, which is the obvious comparison that we would make. They had Andy Robertson, they had John McGinn, they had James Forrest. They had 3 or 4 players that are like really good no matter what country they're from. And Ireland doesn't even have that, so I think it's a great option.
But one thing is they won't stop running. They will not stop running. They will give it their all.
Right.
And that is always a pain in the ass for any of those type of teams that play against us.
Very well organized as well. They're very well organized as well from what I've seen. I have a friend of mine who's trying to do scouting reports, and he said that they're well organized, and they're obviously a threat from set pieces, which hopefully shouldn't be an issue because of our height, but if there's anyone who knows how to whip a ball in, it's the Irish players, so that's a thing. And the final point I would make, and once again I apologize for the interruption, but I do feel it's important to bring this up, the national team job and coaching in a national team is much more different than a club job. The comparisons I've made in recent times is with Andrei Shevchenko and Gareth Southgate. The reason I say that is because both of them took over their national teams at times of despair. Gareth Southgate took over England at a time when England just got knocked out against Iceland. The atmosphere in the team was terribly low, and they were really struggling how to fit all their best players there. And he came in and just kind of calmed things down a little bit. He got the pressure off their backs. He started to change their philosophy because the old philosophy with the English was we're going to go to every tournament and we're going to try to win every tournament because we're the English national team and we're the best and we have all the Premier League stars. He realized that they don't have the talent, but with a couple of great players and with a lot of guys who are very useful for certain roles and doing certain jobs, with a few tactical innovations and a positive change in an atmosphere, you saw that they made the semifinals of the World Cup. They've obviously now got a tremendous batch of young players, and they're heading into the Euros as one of the favorites to win it. And Andrei Shevchenko as well, who had never managed before, he took over Ukraine at a time when they didn't make the World Cup in Russia. And he too was not like some type of amazing tactical mastermind in terms of his experience because he's never managed before. But it was Andrei Shevchenko who is undoubtedly Ukraine's greatest player. He was able to get all of the best players in Ukraine around them, and he was able to make certain tactical changes and give his best players that have not been playing in their clubs, he's given them the roles and he's given them the support. For example, Alexander Zinchenko, for any of you who have watched the Premier League, he's been a left back at Man City and has playing sporadically, even though he's tremendously talented. But when he goes to the Ukraine team, he's playing in center midfield, and Shevchenko has based his game around him. All of the best players are there. They also have the fortune of having a very talented team, and he's made certain tactical advancements that have made them look really good. I mean, we saw them against us, and we saw them against Portugal. They look fantastic, and they're going to be one of the dark horses of the Euros. I say all of these things to bring home the final point. Gareth Southgate was somebody who was a manager before, and he got the England job. Andrei Shevchenko worked with Valery Lobanovsky. He worked with Carlo Ancelotti. He worked with Jose Mourinho. It's impossible for somebody like that not to see things and not to understand football. Dragan Stojkovic has worked with Arsene Wenger. He's worked at Ivica Osim. He has the footballing cachet where he can bring all those guys around. He has the experience because he was a great player. He has managed before. And also the thing that I really like, which is against my character usually, is the confidence that he's displaying, which I also think is important because we saw the interview that you linked and we mentioned it in the last podcast. But I think with all these things that have happened in the last couple of days, you have the FSS president getting arrested, you don't know when the manager's going to show up, you have all these different things. His attitude is, I know you guys can play well. I know you guys can play well as a team. It's just up to you to show it. And I think it's important that somebody leads them because I've long contended that the issue with the chemistry in the team has not been in them not playing or them not caring to play or them being disinterested. I just think that the players in this team have been beat down from all the negative experiences they've had, whether it's the manager getting sacked or big losses in big stages. The Serbian press, which as all you guys know is very harsh sometimes and can be very critical. I think, put yourself in their shoes. It's not nice to hear criticism nonstop 9 out of 10 times. And I think the collective team chemistry has gone down because of it and they're lacking confidence. Pixie coming in and saying, I know we can do well. I'm not going to accept anything except good results. And I believe we can do it, I think is very important. And I mention all of these things as sort of the backdrop to the Ireland game and as the backdrop to the press conference, which will hopefully happen very soon, because I'm very eager to see his appearance. I'm very eager to see his energy, his attitude, how he's going to look.
Yeah.
And,
I'm just reading in Blitz right now, actually, that they're probably not even doing a press conference because of the criminal case with Kokiza. It looks like they're just not going to do a press conference at all on Friday. Just going to release the squad on the website and that's it. So that's great.
Hopefully they just confirm him. Hopefully they just confirm him.
It sounds stupid, but that actually might do us a favour. Do you know what I mean?
It makes sense because all the questions would be about the criminal stuff, right? Of course,
right.
The guys were there.
He can just actually get on with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, just chuck it up on the website. Get all the players together. Get them into camp, and let's get down to business. I actually think it's a blessing in disguise.
I would agree.
Yeah, you're right. It makes sense. It makes sense in this situation, and obviously it's unfortunate, but he had that interview. It sounded like he was talking directly to Veli in that interview with all the passion and that talk, right? So, I mean, we'll see what he says eventually.
But we needed that. I mean, you look at Krstajić's press conference, and so again, sorry to interject because the connection's kind of bugging out. That's why. But, remember Krstajić's press conference before the Ukraine game, I hope we don't lose. Like, how is that going to inspire you? How is that going to lead you to do anything? I want somebody who can stand up and say, usually I'd be against it, but when you have somebody, and we're in the situation that we're at, I want somebody who's talking sense and who says, no, we can do this. We have the ability to do it. Because I think now's the time, with the new generation of players that we haven't seen play a million times, I think it's a chance that we need somebody who can boost the confidence, and we need somebody who can kind of grab the bull by the horn and lead us. And that's what I'm hoping to see from him, and that's what I'm hoping to see from his statements. That's what I'm hoping to see. I'm hoping to see him get unveiled. First of all, I think it would be really shitty if he was just confirmed as manager and just released the squad without any sort of unveiling. I think it would be kind of stupid even without a statement. So that's the only thing that I wanted to add. So
yeah, and I mean, who knows what's going to happen now? The FSS looks like shit's about to hit the fan. Maybe the president's old buddy is going to be the sacrificial lamb. There's always a sacrificial lamb when these things come out, so we'll see how that goes. We might have
and
a
it won't be him, that's for sure. It won't be the president, that's for sure.
Exactly. The president's not taking the fall for these allegations, right? It's going to be one of his close friends who's expendable. And, yeah, that's definitely Kokiza, makes perfect sense. In mob terms, this makes perfect sense, even though we shouldn't be looking at it that way, but it's just the way that things work in Serbia. And, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see the squad. It's going to be interesting to see what type of style he plays. And as you guys mentioned, our first game is in 3 weeks. Not a lot of time to prepare. And the first game is against Ireland, so it's essentially a must-win if we want to finish in the top 2. So a lot was going to happen in the next month, and hopefully it's a lot of good things and a little bit less on the negative side, but we shall see. Let's move on to the other big story of the week that we haven't even mentioned yet was the Europa League round of 16, round 32 game between the second leg between AC Milan and Zvezda. Disappointing, heartbreaking. What can you say? Good performance by Zvezda. Didn't lose. Of course, it was 1-1 draw. Played great. I think they were actually the better team clearly in the second leg. Had some good chances. Some chances that just painful to think about. The misses that they could have went in. And then just very unlucky. Wish it ended differently, but it was a great experience and a great showing. Luka, what were your thoughts?
I mean, what to say, boys? That was a magnificent showing by Zvezda and by Stankovic. Like you said, we were clearly the better team. Damn shame we didn't go through, but I'm very, very proud of the boys and how they fought. And they were equals with Milan, if not better than Milan, over the 2 games, and deserved to go through. Definitely did. It's a little painful seeing them not being able to watch them anymore in the Europa League, but. I really like where this team's at right now. I like where their head's at. I like the way they're playing. And, the difference in that second leg in the Milan game is if Goblic wasn't there, who knows? It could have been a totally different game. Not only did he get, a red card, but he also missed that sitter in front of goal. where he shot it just wide in an open net. So I don't know. I don't know what to say, man. I love the way that Zvezda is playing, and hopefully this is the start of something great. They're racking up those coefficient points for Serbia. Hopefully that gives our league a boost overall. And yeah, let's see where this thing goes.
Things look great going into Champions League qualifying, right? I mean, the team looks like they're hitting form. If they get a one or two more additions, hopefully they sign a couple fullbacks and a central defender. Can't hate on the chances of qualifying for the Champions League. Looks like a team that's on the rise and a manager that's clicking with his players. Veli, what were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah. Okay, a couple of things I really noted down. I was really happy that Radovan Pankov, I thought he really rehabilitated himself. Not the greatest word, but I thought he had a fantastic performance considering the first leg. And I was really happy that somehow, Dejan Stankovic put the confidence back in him to say that, okay, you belong playing in the first 11 for Zvezda. You belong at this level. And I think he really redeemed himself. That would probably be a better word in the second match. Again, we were equal opponents. Do you know what I mean? We were a formidable opponent for Milan, who we obviously caught in a little bit of a downturn. I had that little fear because Zvezda played Milan in Belgrade for the first leg. Their next match was against AC Milan's next match was against Inter Milan, and our next match was Spartak Subotica. So I just thought that massive drop in standard and in intensity might affect us, but it didn't, and so I was really thankful for that. You can see that Dejan Stankovic installs this confidence in them, installs this motivation in them, installs that drive in them. I'm not sure is it because of his big biceps and small t-shirts and hats, but he's jumping around. He's like obviously trying to install some energy, into his players, which is obviously rubbing off. I thought Ben was fantastic. I thought Kanga for the first hour was really good, and then he got back into that really, selfish habits of his. When he had that pole driver that missed, in the first half, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's when things changed for him. He tried to do it almost every single time. Yeah. Mirko Ivanic, he's under a renaissance under Stankovic. He was sort of on the outer, wasn't getting much game time with Vladan Milovic previously, but obviously Stankovic has had a word to him, possibly put his arm around his shoulder, had a chat, had a deep and meaningful. The guy's best player in the Serbian Superliga, for sure. My only question is this, okay? Radovan Pankov, Mirko Ivanic, Miloš Degenek, Aleksandar Kataj, all these type of players, our goalkeeper, obviously, they are nearing 30. So we have a couple players around the 20 mark. We have a little bit of a vacuum, not to mention, Falcinelli, who I thought was rather quiet, I must admit. But Falcinelli, Falcao, Kanga, and Ben, they're on the other side of 30 on the other side. We have a little bit of a vacuum in the middle of terms of that type of player experience. Because listen, at the end of the day, if we get $100 more than what we paid for Mirko Ivanic, Zvezda's going to sell him, let alone 2 or 3 or 4 times more. We're a selling club. It's the way things are. So we have a little bit of a vacuum in that experience in those middle type of age groups, of which I hope we think that we can replenish when that time comes. I'd love to see them again for another year. I would love it more than anything in the world, right? But we have those outside influences, environmental factors such as the fact that we are a selling club, and somebody will come and somebody needs their pockets lined, and agents infiltrate the entire Europe. Let's not be too strict here and say they infiltrate just Serbia. They infiltrate everywhere, and they all have a say. So, yeah, fantastic performance. Well done them. Again, harping onto a point. Shame that there's no crowds there, because I think that would have been an influence in a positive situation for us. But, it was something to be proud. It's something that we were all used to as I said, guys, I'm 93 years of age. Like I'm used to that as a child. You guys, when you were young, probably saw the back end of it.
Right.
Your parents definitely saw it. You know what I mean? That's what we're used to. So, long may the Renaissance continue. I hope we're all around, those players all around, so we can build on it for next year.
And Veli, just to add something. Sure. Sorry, Mil. Just to add something real quick. You're right about Zvezda and kind of that gap that we have in our aging players and stuff, and that we are a selling club. Luckily for Zvezda, I thought in the last couple of years, they've done a great job of bringing in players, whether it be like a Falcinelli, Katai, whoever else. I think they did a great job of integrating them into the team, and where they become like a vital part of the team. So there's a little bit of hope there for sure. And I also
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. And I wish we would go back to what we said. I don't know, guys, if you've ever seen it, and it's quite some time ago now. You can go on YouTube. There was a fantastic documentary called Futbol Nogomet in Još Ponešto. Right, it's on YouTube. I absolutely, thoroughly recommend all of our listeners to, spend the time and look for it and watch the whole thing. Dragan Jade said something, it was about the mid-'80s or, in the late 80s, what they did, probably the mid-'80s, is they absolutely scouted the entire Serbian nation or Yugoslavia at that time, looked after every rock, under every street corner. They went from, Valjevo to Kraljevo to God knows where to look for that thing. I hope we can get back to that as well, to look for our homegrown talent, because Falcinelli makes a difference and Katai makes a difference and all that, but we just need that next wave of our Serbian youngsters to come through and hopefully wear the Zvezda shirt and knows what it means to wear the Zvezda shirt.
Right. And
so,
dude, and even more so, man, now that, Zvezda's had, if you look at the last 3 years, Champions League 2 times, got out of the group stage in the Europa League, like, there's going to be players that are going to want to play for this team because they see they see the future in it, if I may, right? So, like, there will be players that want to come to Zvezda as opposed to us, begging them to play for Zvezda before just because we can give them a paycheck. At least now there's, hope of European football.
And especially with the coach.
Yes,
absolutely.
Exactly.
And, if my memory serves me correctly, I was in the stadium when Zvezda played Bate Borisov in the group stage. I can't remember now because, I'm getting old and the dementia setting in. But Mirko Ivanic played for Bate Borisov, right? So what we're trying to avoid is the fact is that a young 19, 18, 17-year-old kid gets transferred from Zvezda to Sheriff Tiraspol in Moldova.
Right, precisely.
Right? What we're trying to avoid is that we want to keep them in there. We want to keep them within the system, keep them within the country, keep them within the league. I know you're never going to go back to the days where we're saying, nobody can get transferred until they're 27 years old. That's all long gone. But the fact is to say that, okay, how can we keep that group together to make sure that we get more of these memories? Because at the end of the day, that's what they are, memories. Like, every time now you say to yourself, Zvezda versus Milan,
right,
you have now got 6, 7, 8, 10 games, beg your pardon, in that entire history that we look back with fondness.
Right.
A guy lives in Adelaide, a guy called Milan Ivanovic, played against Rijkaard and Gullit and Van Basten. He lives here in Adelaide. He tells you about that all. He goes, we played them off the park. It was just the fact is that in that split second, they had that bit of a chance on, the famous interim when the lights went out and they had to come back again. He goes, they thanked the Lord that the lights went out because they were run off their feet. Stojkovic was, as a player then was killing him. Mita Mrkala, all that, like in that generation of players were absolutely hammering them. And, in their own backyard, just like we saw last week. There were times there, I think all you guys will agree, whether you love Zvezda or not, there were times that we were absolutely mouth-watering in what we did.
Oh, without a doubt.
And, like I had goosebumps and I was walking up and down to my house and,
I was shocked.
Yeah, it was. But the thing is, that's what, like, hey, again, my generation, that's what we remember. That's what we remember. Do you know what I mean? Like, we playing Bayern Munich off the park in Germany, like, for God's sake, do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's what we did, all that time ago. And guess what? Life, not just football, is all about cycles. And hopefully we are coming back to some type of renaissance of which our teams, and I'm a Zvezdaš, that's no great surprise, but I want Partizan to do that, and I want Vojvodina to do that. That famous documentary that I mentioned Futbol Nogomet i još ponešto, had a little clip, a little segment of when Radnički Niš went to the semi-finals of the then UEFA Cup. I want all of our clubs to do well, because we can't survive off 2 games a year watching Zvezda versus Partizan. 9.5 times out of 10, they're an absolute fucking bore fest, right? And so, and we're just worrying about, which fans are ripping the seats out of the already public stadiums. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
that's right. And hopefully the team stays together for the start of qualifying for the Champions League. But I think realistically, I'm sure 1 or 2 key players will be sold, as well as the young guys. I would be shocked if Nikolic, Gavric, and Lazatic weren't sold or loaned out, or some kind of sold or loaned back in the summer. I mean, it's Corona. The club isn't making as much money apparently as they normally would be, or no club is, because of lack of fans and all that. Less advertising money, as well as advertisers don't have that much money to give out anymore, since they're also losing money. So I think the club will definitely be selling this summer, unfortunately. But I think the core should still be there for the start of the Champions League qualifying, and hopefully we'll see the team back in the Champions League. Now, Alex, I know that you're probably sitting there really upset because Veli said that Ivanic is the best player in the league and not Asano. But what were your thoughts on the game, man?
Let's compare apples and oranges. First of all, Mitko Ivanic, I feel so sad that he's not playing for our national team. I feel so regretful that he went to choose Montenegro. It's in the current system, when you look at how he's been playing, I mean, he'd be good enough to start. He has been absolutely amazing, and it's rare that I say that, and that's really the great success of Dan Stankovic, because you'll remember how he looked last year. Now, granted, last year he played out of position; he was forced to play defensive midfield, but he really looked off the ball and was not impactful in games. And I was like, he has to play better at some point, because I saw him play for Vojvodina. We saw again against another Italian team, against Sampdoria. Him and Ožegovic just played them off the park, and the way he played at Bate Borisov in that game that you mentioned, Veli, but also Nemanja Milunovic was in that Bate Borisov team, so they also used that as a good bit of scouting. He was amazing. I mean, the way he was just weaving past players, it was shocking. I mean, you don't see, like, I understand that the people are going to have their certain comments because, Zlatan didn't start and they really didn't play a full-strength team. I mean, they played a good team. They played like 5 or 6 of their starters, and some of the other starters they didn't play because of the things they had to do in the domestic league in the Serie A. But they still had their defense. They still had Donnarumma. They still had Theo Hernandez playing in the first game. They had Romagnoli. They had Diko Tomori, who had been a Chelsea starter. They played Calabria, who's their starting right back.
Hey, man, Zvezda didn't have the right team either, dude. So it's not,
Yeah. They created a lot of chances, and I was very wary of the second leg. I thought the first leg was going to be very close because I knew of the hype that was going into the game, and it was a game that mattered much more to Zvezda than it did to Milan. But the second leg, I was kind of scared, because if you remember the last time that they played in the return leg against CSKA Moscow, even though it ended 1-0 to CSKA Moscow, it could have been a lot more, and the team just did not come out prepared and ready to play because the game was on short notice. But the way that they were able to rebound from the conceded penalty as well, I think is a testament to Stankovic's man management, which has really been fantastic. What he's done with Ivanic, what he's managed to do with Milan Pavkov, who was completely out of favor, and he's got him back. The way he's been able to get Pavkov back onto a stable position after the first game, and he was very good in the second game. The Gobic situation, I want to spend a little time on that. I think that people are too quick to forget some of the good games he has had. He was the best player on the pitch against the PSG in the group phase in the Champions League. He scored that amazing volley goal. And I immediately thought of that when he missed that chance. It was like, you scored that against Gigi Buffon from a much worse angle, but you don't score here from like 4 yards out. It's bizarre. The game he had against Copenhagen was very good. He's also had some bad games. The fact that he came in as a starter, I don't know what people see in him. I mean, he's good for the Superliga level, but the constant Achilles heel of Serbian clubs came back to bite them on the ass. The fact that it seems it's almost like forbidden by law that clubs here pay money for a good fullback. I don't understand why that is. I don't know why there's such a stake about it. But you saw the things that they had to go with. Salvi Bosonic was forced to play left wing back. Guys start to play better. But all these different experimentations. I mean, if you remember in the Ghent game, if you remember, Alex Vukanovic played left wing back because they didn't have anyone else to play there. So all those experimentations make no sense. Why is Stefan Heiding completely out of favor? Was it really necessary to kick Jander out? And I mean, when you consider the fact that Jander was kicked out after what happened against Olympiacos last year, I find it hard to see how they wouldn't kick Gobelic out for what happened. If you're going by that. And but
I would think Jander was on more bigger money though. That's the other thing you got to do. I think Jander would be paying a lot more money than they pay Gobelic.
Exactly.
Which I think is tragic. That's what I think.
That's Gobelic is even getting paid,
Yeah.
I think
Alex.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Sorry, brother. So if you think about it, this is what I'd love to see, right? Ben's getting to the end. Kanga's getting to the end, so on and so forth, right? So, but the thing is that Ivanic is 27, Pankov is 28, Gobelic is around the mark too, Alex Vukanovic is around 27, 28, if I can remember off the top of my head. Can we use those budgets to keep those guys there? Because they will know better more than anybody what it's like to play for Zvezda, right? And players that leave, all they do, and I'm not on social media because I'm 114 years of age, but, like everyone that's left Zvezda, all they do is tweet about Zvezda. Just look at Vujanin Savic and things like that. That's all Filip Stojkovic, all they do is tweet about Zvezda. So, can we use those budgets and just redirect them to keep Pavkov, to keep, to reward Pankov, to, God, isn't it funny how those two are in the same starting lineup, but, to keep these guys at Zvezda so we can avoid them to go playing in a middle of the range table in Cyprus or in, God knows where, right? So that's, I think, the opportunity that lies for Zvezda, considering Dejan Stankovic is doing such a great job for us.
I think that's a problem that I think is somewhat fixed because you look at the fact Marseille, Radonjic, other clubs that bought good players. I think you've played in Europa and Champions League for 4 years and you've had some big results and big ties. I think people have gotten aware to what Zvezda's done. And just quickly back to the game, I think that the performance as well of, you mentioned Falcinelli being off, not being in rhythm. He was the only player that they really knew going into the game. So you knew that they were going to do a good job of scouting him and that they were going to struggle with it. But I think the other two guys that were great, I thought Seiko Sanogo, once again, I mean, if that guy had a weak foot, he'd be in a Premier League team. I mean, his ability to cover massive distances is fantastic. His tackling ability, his tenacity, as well, was great. Alfredo Ben, I think, is the best foreigner that has ever played for Zvezda, and I feel completely comfortable saying that with huge respect to Segundo Castillo and huge respect to Mal Molina and Boachi. This guy, his goal-scoring record and just his attitude is very much a Sano-like. He's kept his head down. He's worked hard. He's been rewarded for it. He hit the bar as well. He was fantastic.
And what a finish, man! World-class finish too.
And it makes me even more angry that the fact that he wasn't registered for the last year's Champions League. Because can you imagine him and Marin playing together? I mean, how he wasn't registered for last year's Champions League. I mean, it gets me angry. I'm not even emotionally invested in it, but it's little things like that make the problem. Stankovic deserves credit as well for the team having a lot of character. I mean, they went down, but they came back again and equalized the game, and they were still attacking. It's unfortunate that the mistreatment of Slavio Srnic continues. That's my only issue. I was saying from the start that Gobelic was the one who was supposed to go off. You put Srnic in, you put Njegos Petrovic there, and you have guys playing wing back. I think if he would have kept Srnic on the left, he would have scored that. I mean, I'm convinced of that. I remember the game against CSKA Moscow when he was left on the bench, and there was a big drama about that because he wasn't happy. And when he came on against them in the last 15 minutes, Zvezda had the three best chances of the game after that. So he clearly, relished just playing for them. I mean, I love Slavio Srnic in every way because he's such a plug-and-play player. And even though he has nothing technically or physically that makes him stand out, he just gets things done. And he just has the tenacity and just has the confidence in himself. And he's not afraid of any big stage. And why he was subbed off made no sense to me whatsoever. But the performance was very good. I still think that in regards to Gobelic, whether he gets kicked out or not, I mean, he's a useful player in the sense he can play multiple positions, but the fact that they're not willing to play for fullback is really problematic. And how the team is going to look composition-wise is going to be interesting, whether guys get sold or not. You have to keep in mind that Aleksandar Dragovic also signed a contract, and he's coming in the summer, which I would assume means either Milunovic or Degenek is leaving, because I don't see how they can keep the wage bill for all of them. What happens with the attackers? You know, the Katai's had injuries and has been kind of on and off. People want to buy Pavkov. Ben is 31 and probably wants to pay up for his game. So there's a lot of things there that are left to be seen. But the purchase of Filippo Falco I thought was good. He looked very comfortable and I thought looked very good for that level of play. Mm-hmm. Even if he stays, is certainly going to be the leader of the team. And also some of the other tactical things that Stankovic has done over time deserve credit. The fact he's adjusted to a 3 at the back formation. He's given Milanovic the keys to that defense, which was crucial. And he's made me really, I think the whole coaching staff as well, Milos Milovic was there with Vladan Milovic in the coaching staff and did a great job with him. He stayed in this coaching staff along with Nebojša Milošević, who's the lead assistant, and they've all done a very good job of that as well in terms of preparing the team and playing different types of formations. They went 3 at the back, they went 4 at the back. They've shown a lot of versatility. And I was very skeptical of Stankovic when he came in because the first 6 months were really bad, but he's been learning on the job. He's done really well. What happens with the team remains to be seen. But it was a great performance. I think that this Europa League, they can absolutely leave their heads up high because the way it looked early on, for them to be this close against Milan, I mean, whatever you want to say, Milan is a top 4 Serie A team and legitimately a top 4 Serie A team. And they played, Zlatan played, and Theo Hernandez played, and all those guys played. And Zvezda was that close to beating them. Of course, if they would have let the corner, it would have been a goal, but we won't get into that. I'm kidding aside. But, no, I mean, the officiating, I mean, that also is just, typical UEFA Mafia. I mean, but like really, it's kind of hard to criticize him for it, but at the same time, it's like it's the last quarter of the game, like 30 seconds after stoppage time, Milan made like 7 subs.
Right.
It's kind of after all the, just give the corner. I mean, they probably wouldn't have scored from it, but it's like, and the thing that makes it even worse is now
there's like a 0.1% chance that would have went in.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I'm going to have to hear about this for the next 20 years. If they would have let that corner,
right.
we would have scored. Exactly, so that's what kind of irking me on the other side. But I thought the performance was great. I think this group stage has been really good. Stankovic has done a great job. I think he's really taken steps forward. I think he's starting to sound very eloquent and very much in tune with what's going on. And I think that's actually a big surprise because he was never the most eloquent of people, but he's actually making a lot of sense in his communication. He seems to be really connecting with the players well. He's taken massive steps forward. He's worked his ass off to get better. He's tried to learn from other managers and complimented them. So I think I can only give credit. I mean, you have to give them credit. It sucks from the coefficient perspective that all the other clubs that are chasing us did well. Dinamo Zagreb went through. Deservedly so. They played very well against Krasnodar. Young Boys went through. So our coefficient's really kind of dangling right now. But I think next year with the Conference League, there's a chance it could be boosted up because Partizan's got 14 straight wins. I'm hoping for it to extend to like 24 by the end of the season. It's looking like it. We got a good result against Vojvodina.
I want both Zvezda and Partizan to be in a European like. What is it, spring for you guys or European autumn for me? Right. I want them to be playing the year after, right?
I have to mention them because we're not mentioning them at all. I had to mention them because we haven't mentioned them once since we started.
But more than I want that to happen. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, if we all sit in a pub and Zvezda's Partizan on TV, buddy, I'm not going to wish you that much luck, right? But for the good of Serbian football, I want that to happen. And, at the end of the day, we've all had our tribal attitudes for way too long. We need to go have a common good and a common goal, and I think that would be, the most effective way forward.
That's right, Veli. And, amazing run in Europe this year. Hopefully it's the start of something big going into next year and the future. And Stankovic, of course, seems like one hell of a young manager. And I'm sure he will have a bright career because it looks like he has all the tools. Players believe in him. He's passionate. He's well-spoken, as Alexa mentioned. He seems like he's already learned a lot just in the short time he's been a manager, which is very commendable for anyone, especially someone like him who's well-respected. It seems like he's really working hard and trying to improve, and that will take him a long way. Finally, Veli, I know you like to have some special shout-outs. Or
absolutely, very quickly. Absolutely. So a massive shout out to the Bonnyrigg White Eagles Football Club in Sydney. They are historically known as Avala. Their season kicks off. So I want to wish them all the best, and a massive shout out to a wonderful, wonderful man who's had a long history in running that club, Chukoyovo Larkic. Now, I know, guys, we all have a Chukoyovo, but I can absolutely guarantee you that if you ever sat down with this man, over a few beers on a table, You would absolutely enjoy his company. One of the most sincere, beautiful, lovely men you've ever met. So big shout out to Chikoyowo and all the best for Avila in Sydney for the upcoming season.
Beautiful, man. Hey, and I have a quick shout out too, Milish, if you don't mind, man. Two Serbian fighters on the UFC card on this Saturday. One is undefeated. It is Uroš Medic. He came in through the Dana White's Contender Series, and he'll be fighting on the early prelims. And then crazy story with this guy. He left everything in Serbia and moved to Alaska to pursue his MMA dream. And he got into the UFC, and so this will be his first UFC fight. So I'm looking forward to that one. And then, of course, opening up the main card on pay-per-view is Aleksandar Rakic versus the Thiago Santos, I believe. So it's going to be a cracker of a fight. So I'm hoping everybody tunes in that is a fan of MMA and cheers on our boys from Serbia.
Absolutely. I hope he's a fan of the pod too.
Let's hope so, dude.
My shout out goes to all the people listening to us, and hopefully we'll have many more. Very simple. That's more to add.
Ako Bog da. Yep.